Witness, if you can please join us. Thank you. And Senator, whenever you're ready, you may begin your presentation.
Thank you and good morning, Mr. Chair and members. I'm here this morning to present Senate Bill 1230, and let's be clear what this is really about. Illegal dumping is not happening in Beverly Hills. It's not piling up in Brentwood. It's happening in communities that don't have the resources, the political clout, or the access to fight back. In places like my community, the Antelope Valley, Lake Los Angeles, Phelan, Pinion Hills, families are living to what are essentially open landfills. Not by choice, but because bad actors know there is no real consequence. This isn't just about how it looks, this is about public safety and it's about quality of life. Illegal dumping contaminates soil and groundwater, it attracts vermin, it increases wildfire risks, and every time it happens, taxpayers are stuck footing the bill. The problem is that our enforcement tools haven't kept up. The fines that are supposed to deter this behavior haven't been meaningfully updated since 2004, over 20 years ago. While we took a step in 2022 to increase maximum penalties for large-scale violators, the minimum fines and non-commercial penalties were left untouched. And those are the penalties most often applied in communities getting hit the hardest. Today, those fines are still far below the actual cost of cleanup. For repeat offenders, that's not a deterrent. It's just the cost of doing business. In my district alone, residents have documented more than 100 unauthorized dump sites across our Antelope Valley. From Lake Los Angeles to our Antelope Valley Poppy Reserve, some stretch hundreds of acres and go dozens of feet deep. We've seen over 70 trash-related fires responded to by LA County Fire in just the past couple of years, costing taxpayers over $1.6 million. And in 2024, the Apollo fire, sparked by illegally dumped material, burned 800 acres, destroyed a home, and killed several dogs. I've talked to residents who have had to stay inside their homes because the smoke and the smell from these sites made it unsafe to go outside. Here, SB 1230 is a targeted fix. It increases fines for second and subsequent violations only. We are not touching the first-time offenders, and it creates centralized resource through CalRecycle so local governments have the tools they need to actually enforce the law and clean this up. Here today to testify in support is Jael Dantas on behalf of Supervisor Nate Miley from Alameda, and second, Christina Brown. She's one of my constituents who has experienced firsthand the consequences of illegal dumping.
Great, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair and members. Jael Dentas with Full Moon Strategies on behalf of Alameda County Board of Supervisors. We do appreciate the leadership of Senator Valladares for bringing this issue forward. Illegal dumping is a major issue impacting communities across California. It lowers the quality of life of our residents in urban, suburban, and rural areas alike. In Alameda County alone, we spend over $2 million every year cleaning up illegal dumping in unincorporated areas. And that does not include the costs borne by our cities. This is not a local inconvenience. Illegal dumping creates environmental hazards, fire risks, and public health concerns, while draining already limited public resources. For over a decade, Supervisor Nate Miley from Alameda has worked to address this issue by bringing together stakeholders across the state. Through his leadership, we developed a best practice framework known as the 3 E's: education, eradication, and enforcement. This approach focuses on preventing dumping before it happens, removing waste quickly when it does occur, and ensuring that there are real consequences for those who break the law. But in reality, our current laws are not strong enough to support the third E, enforcement. Existing penalties for illegal dumping are outdated and too low. In many cases, it's cheaper for bad actors to dump illegally than dispose of the waste properly. As a result, prosecutors often deprioritize these cases, giving limited resources and a minimal impact. SB 1230 takes a practical and a targeted approach to fixing this problem. And in the end of the day, this is about protecting our communities, our environment, and our public resources. We ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Hi.
Hi, good morning. My name is Christina Brown. I'm a property owner in the Antelope Valley, 1 hour north of the city of Los Angeles. I'm here because Senator Valladares invited me to tell you about what the illegal dumping crisis looks like from the inside, not from a report or agency briefing, but from someone who has had their life upended by it. What happened next door to me is happening across Southern California's rural and desert lands. In January of 24, the parcel next to my property changed ownership. Massive transfer trucks began arriving around the clock, illegally dumping thousands of tons of waste, ground-up construction debris, and plastics coming directly from facilities and transfer stations in the city. This waste was then covered with organics, i.e. mulch littered with plastics and solid waste. The smell was rank, the dust clouds were stories high. The noise from the trucks in our formerly quiet neighborhood was constant, and the waste stretched half a mile long and 12 feet high. This was a profit-driven scheme run by waste companies to avoid paying the price of landfill disposal tipping fees. My community absorbed their operating costs, their pollution, and their fires. Over 72 mulch fires broke out across northern Los Angeles County during this 18-month period. 2 homes burnt to the ground due to self-combusting mulch. In my neighborhood, people started on rounds of antibiotics to combat illness caused by the constant dust. My partner developed an agonizing cough. My own health collapsed from the stress, and both of my neighbors, the only other residents on our road, sold their homes, took huge losses, and moved. SB 1230 matters because it raises the cost of illegal dumping high enough that companies can no longer treat fines as a line item cheaper than compliance. It strengthens the mechanism for enforcement so that there are meaningful ramifications for illegal dumping. I urge you to strongly support SB 1230 for the families who lost their homes, for the neighbors who sold and left, and for the children being treated for dust allergies, and for every property owner in rural areas of California who are living next to landfills and hoping that you in Sacramento see them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take any testimony from anyone else in support of SB 1230.
David Bolog, SFV Alliance, in support. Thank you.
John Kennedy, Rural County Representatives of California, in strong support for the reasons that you just stated. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. I wrote out a 50-second statement. Is that okay if I can read it?
If you could just, we're just limiting this
Okay.
time to
Okay.
just name.
Understood.
organization,
My
position.
name is Ashley Morose, and on behalf of my community and my entire community, I'm in full support.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone in opposition to the bill? We'll take up to 2 principal witnesses in opposition.
Good morning, Chair and members. George Paramthou speaking on behalf of ACLU California Action in respectful opposition to SB 1230, unless it is amended to remove increases for fines for individuals. We understand the legislature's desire to address illegal dumping, but increased fines do not deter behavior and they will not backfill city budgets. For example, take Oakland, which suffers from some of the worst illegal dumping issues in the state. From 2021 to 2024, the city issued nearly 3,000 fines for illegal dumping, but only collected 10% of those fines. The same story repeated last year, when Oakland issued citations totaling $230,000, but only collected about $20,000. Given the cost to chase down these fines, the city likely lost revenue by trying to address illegal dumping through fines. The legislature should not set every other local budget down this same treacherous course. Moreover, while not the intention of the author, the bill will likely lead to increased fines for those experiencing homelessness. And with the current law allowing for each day to count as a separate violation, the fines quickly stack up. As noted in the analysis, simply leaving a sleeping bag on a sidewalk for 3 days can lead to nearly $31,000 in fines. Of course, there would be no way for that person to ever pay those fines, and leaving them deeper in poverty and less likely to ever find stable housing. We can avoid all these issues and solve this problem by enacting any of the 22 preventative measures that Contra Costa County has currently begun implementing. including launching free disposal days, offering more opportunities for bulk waste pickup, creating options to dispose of broken down vehicles, and making sure that the public is actually aware of these options. Because SB 1230 does not take this preventative approach, we urge a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Margot George on behalf of the California Public Defenders Association. I'm a resident of Oakland and Alameda County, and I certainly can attest that the examples that my colleague from the ACLU pointed out exist, that Oakland has a horrible problem, and the strategy of fining people is not working, and that it would really be helpful to have more bulky waste pickups and reduce landfill fees. And one thing that's a particular problem is that as a homeowner and someone who has a garbage bill, I can call and schedule a bulky waste pickup. Renters and people who are unhoused do not have that capacity. And then once they're in a location, people come and just dump things that it's clearly they didn't bring there, like washing machines, dishwashers, stuff like that. So I think there are strategies without further impoverishing the poor. This legislature in the budget trailer bill merely 5 years ago eliminated some 42 fines and fees, and making note of the impact and also the fact that they're uncollectible, and it costs the counties more to collect them than they brought in as a result. They also have a racially disparate impact. The U.S. Supreme Court in Timms v. Indiana said that the Eighth Amendment's excessive fines clause is an incorporated protection applicable to the states and protects people against abuses of government's punitive or criminal law enforcement authority. And Justice Ginsburg wrote in her decision that constitutional protection extends to excessive fines. We respectfully ask for your no vote unless it is amended. And again, as a resident of Alameda County, I can attest it's not working. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to express opposition to SB 1230? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the dais. I have to hand the gavel over to the vice chair. I have to go vote in the Energy Committee, but I just want to make a comment. I have a fellow resident of Oakland here. I am also a resident of the city of Oakland, proud to represent the city of Oakland in Alameda County in the California State Senate, and absolutely the issues of illegal dumping are a serious problem in my community. And that's why I've introduced another bill, SB 1218, which would give the DMV the ability to hold driver's license renewals for people with outstanding penalties. Because I agree, thousands and thousands of dollars of penalties have been assessed. They have not been paid, and there's no accountability. But I see this as another accountability tool. And I think the issues you raised, Ms. George, are legitimate. We do need to make it easier for people to be able to dump things. We do need to increase waste collection services so that people are not dumping stuff on the street. But individuals are doing this as well as commercial haulers. And I think the senator for the bill would love to be added as a co-author at the appropriate time. And I'll turn the gavel to the vice chair.
All right. Did you have any comments? Go ahead, Senator.
Yeah, I'm going to be supporting the bill, and in fact, I would like to be considered as a co-author as well on the bill. I do, saying that, I do trust that the author will work to try to deal with some of what I would consider to be nuances in the urban areas. And homelessness is obviously more than a nuance. Obviously, we're dealing with epidemic levels, crisis levels of it in our urban centers. And as far as I'm concerned, those folks, shouldn't be penalized or over penalized. They're not going to have the resources to deal with it anyway. But that seems like a pretty basic carve out to do. If I'm supporting this bill because of the dramatic problems that we have that seem to mirror what you've been experiencing in your district, in Senate District 15, which runs from the heart of Silicon Valley in San Jose and the West Valley in the North County all the way to the Stanislaus and Alameda County line. we have a scenic highway called Highway 130. It's not very scenic these days because it's constantly riddled with dumping, and it's anecdotally at least a significant combination of private, and commercial dumping. I would say, and again, anecdotally, I can't prove that. Nobody can. Otherwise, it would be easier for Caltrans and CHP to cite the folks if they left more evidence. But it isn't that hard to identify, household rubbish and those kinds of things that are being dumped. Short of the state investing in surveillance programs like we've done with severe, traffic safety issues, we've started to do that. I don't know how else to deal with this. I'd certainly be open as an individual legislator to hearing from any good ideas from folks as to how to deal with this. But the consequences are very real. It's not just a matter of turning a scenic highway into basically a landfill, and that's not an exaggeration. I have the actual, this is not anecdotal, what I'm going to say to you next. So this is as of Tuesday, April 7th, this morning, Caltrans report just on one highway, Highway 130, scenic highway that I just described in Santa Clara County, in the 12 months prior to today, through today, they have removed, not all of the dumping that's occurred there, but they've removed 120 cubic yards of illegal dumping on 27 trips. That means every other week they've had to go and remove dumping, and they can't keep up, which is actually exacerbating the problem in the urban areas, because when you send the 4 members of the Caltrans crew, we only have 4 for the entire county, onto a one-day excursion every other week onto a scenic highway to try to clean these areas up. It's taking them away from interchanges and local conditions where they probably could, in a sense, be augmenting the needs of homeless encampments by picking up more of those areas. So it's a big problem. I commend the author, obviously, by saying I'm willing to go on as a co-author if she's willing to have me, but I commend you for stepping forward to do something about this. It's an old school solution. I'm typically very reluctant, to jack up penalties, especially anything that would result on the criminal side, or fines that people are going to have trouble paying. But there's a deterrent value here as well. When people basically know worst case scenario, they're going to get an infraction, and we've had people get caught where law enforcement basically said, look, this isn't going to be prosecuted, but we'll give them a warning. We'll go to their house and give them a warning. Great. That deals with 1 or 2 folks who get caught over a year's time, and basically everyone else is getting off the hook. So I hope you can work with opposition to try to figure out ways to protect the most vulnerable individuals with the bill. But I wouldn't, based on what I've seen, want to exempt individuals from a bill like this, because folks who aren't taking advantage of multifamily opportunities where there's dumpsters available aren't taking advantage of the opportunities they have to have trash picked up in front of their homes on certain days. Many communities, including the one I live here in Sacramento, the service will pick up heavy items. You can call in. We can do that in San Jose. You can call in. You can have a refrigerator picked up or an appliance picked up. There has to, as we said in a completely different vein on a prior bill, there has to be some consequences for people not taking advantage of what we as taxpayers are already providing them in terms of an opportunity to not really even have to leave the street in front of their house or the apartment complex they live in and have these things picked up, to go out of their way and drive 15, 20 minutes up into the hills in a wilderness area, not only pollute the scenic highway, but dump rubbish down into canyons and mountainous pockets that lead into watershed areas. It becomes not only a problem. And we have one of the biggest problems we have with Caltrans in our area is not their effort, but the fact that they don't have permission to go into the private property downhill oftentimes of where this dumping is occurring. So again, if there's a way to fix all that, short of updating the fines, which I understand hasn't been done for a dozen years or so, or in conjunction with that, I'm all ears, but I do appreciate the effort to bring something forward that, again, to use that term, does send a message and sends a signal that people are paying attention to this, and if you get caught, there's going to be some consequences. And word travels fast. That's one thing we learn about in the rural areas in our district. And there's 600,000 acres of rural areas in my district, and I represent 80% of San Jose, so I represent Silicon Valley, and I've got 600,000 acres of rural areas with these highways going through 152, 130, et cetera. And one of the things, again, old school, but one of the things that folks along those routes will tell you is that word travels fast. The minute somebody does get caught, it becomes something that people are very aware of. So that's the theory I'm operating under today until somebody changes my mind. And thank you for bringing the bill forward.
So he did
Sorry
have
about
some clarifying points there.
Sorry about the lengthy comments.
No, I completely understand. It's a big problem in my district. I want to make some clarifying points on what my bill does, what existing law does. So my bill just addresses the second and third offense. We're not increasing the infraction. There's an existing infraction, an existing misdemeanor. It's already in law. It's already also in law that, correct, you can have a penalty per day. So that there's a lot more work that needs to be done with this. The one thing I will add, because of course we don't want this impacting our most poor in our community. The court does have discretion right now, again in statute, to look at the financial capability of the person with the violation. So that is already existing in state law. There is discretion on that. My bill only seeks to increase penalties for the second and third offense because, yes, this is about accountability, but it's also about prevention. We don't want the illegal dumping. And I believe these increases in the penalties help with the prevention aspect as well as accountability.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair Sierra.
Thank you. So this issue, listening to your testimony and listening to what this bill is talking about, we're talking about some different aspects. There's a lot of different prongs of the illegal dumping. The one I think this bill is most helpful with is the people that go out there, and the reason they're doing it is because it's convenient and it's cheap, and they know damn well that they're doing it. And they know why they're doing it, because they don't want to take a run to the dump. That in our area, it's up in Lambs Canyon. The other issue is something that we need to work on with Cal Recycle. Our organics waste program requires the waste hauler companies to haul the organic waste to whatever location, and one of them is in Bakersfield, which is, as you know, a little bit farther than Antelope Valley. And so if they purchase property, I'm not quite sure what the regulations are that say they can't dump and create a compost pile on their property, especially out in open areas like Antelope Valley. That is a breakdown of Cal Recycle. And because I don't know that they're doing it illegally, but they're doing it because the laws that we created to deal with organic waste are creating that. We need to look at that, because that's what those are what we call unintended consequences of trying to deal with something. And the whole recycle programs are basically broken. We have no end game for a lot of these recycled things. So that's something that we have to look at on a bigger scale. And but this particular law, I think, especially because it focuses on second and third offenders, there's a lot of, I'll just be honest, the construction industry folks out there, they load up their pickup truck at the end of the day with all the debris, and they don't want to go to the dump. And so they go find a place to, hide behind a hill and get it out of there and then drive off. If we can catch them, great. Yeah, they should get fined. And if we get if they keep doing it, they should get fined even more, because we have to take it doesn't cost as much out of it so that it does cost as much or more or 3 times or 4 times as much. So if we can focus, this bill kind of focuses on them, so I support that part of it. But this other thing that you're talking about, they're ruining neighborhoods out in the more open areas, the more rural areas, trying to comply with something that is I think, nominally helpful in the big fight with our environment. So I don't think you get to comment unless I ask you a question, but I am going to follow up with some of our waste haulers to find out what's happening with that, and if it's an illegal situation or it's just they bought the land and they're going to do it. So maybe could you maybe answer that question about whether the waste haulers are buying property and then using that as a thing? Maybe your witness might know.
Yeah, to address a few of your points here as well, Senator, thank you for the question. My bill also creates a centralized resource hub through CalRecycle so that local cities and counties understand the resources and best practices for implementing this in those communities. I would love if one of my witnesses could weigh in on the properties being bought for this intention. And you're right, this bill is very specific. There's so much more that needs to be done, but through the chair.
In my experience, there's some waste companies that are grinding up construction and demolition, as well as, recycling plastics, and grinding it up fine enough that they're calling it land app and organics. So those two things are kind of being intermingled, and that's because getting rid of C&D is so much more expensive than getting rid of organics. Yeah. I think the gentleman that purchased the 160 acres in our neighborhood, he works with multiple waste companies, and he had no registration whatsoever, no Swiss registration, which is a solid waste information system registration. That's a huge problem. One other thing is that people are buying properties out in the desert, and then you can't track them down. And it's really interesting. I'm trying to, if you buy land in California, it's so expensive and precious that you do everything you can to hold on to it until you get out into the desert, where it's so cheap to buy land that it's a way to make money by dumping. I hope at some point you get to see pictures of what these look like. They're landfills. It's definitely not sleeping bags. They're two different problems.
And the composting is what creates the odor.
The composting is also, it's what we have in the desert is not, it's not agricultural land. There's no water. There's no rain.
I think you got the question that I was wanting. Yeah, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? I made my comments before I left. Turn it back over to you, Senator, to close.
Respectfully, happy to add the co-author request on the bill and respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I'll move the bill.
Okay, motion by Vice Chair Seattle. The motion is due pass to Environmental Quality Committee as amended.
No.
Oh, no, we didn't amend it. We're moving the bill as is. That's
correct.
Right. So motion is due pass to EQ.
SB 1230, Valadares. Motion is due pass to EQ. Araguin?
Aye.
Araguin, aye. Sayarto?
Aye.
Sayarto, aye. Caballero? Cortese? Aye. Cortese, aye. Perez? Wiener.
Okay, we'll keep that bill on call for absent members. Thank you. I see we have Senator Hurtado here, so we'll go next to SB 1220.